Okay, so we just wanted to make a few notes about cadence in relation to running for injury prevention and performance. So cadence means how many steps per minute that you are taking if we count on both feet, okay? And cadence became of interest a number of years ago when somebody did some research looking on kind of the international stage of distance runners and said, hey, like how many steps per minute are all of these people doing? You know, among those kind of elite athletes that tend to be winning or tend to be competing on the international stage. And found that the majority of people in that study were using a cadence in around the 180 steps per minute. So all of a sudden this 180 became kind of a magic number that everybody was kind of interested in. And since that time, a lot of people have found success using that number to kind of train their running. But also there have been kind of a number of cases where cadence could be much higher or lower, and finding that people are still being successful there. In the physiotherapy and rehabilitation world, we do see a tendency where we often have some more elevated numbers of people having pain with running in association with lower cadences. And we tend to see more like recreational or untrained runners selecting or self-selecting lower cadences where they're trying to get this kind of longer stride, but they end up kind of heel striking and feeling more impact and shock through the body as a result. And so that can be a little bit jarring for things, especially around that kind of low back, hip, knee, and so often we may see some pains developing in that area. So usually we're going to measure cadence will be the first step that we take. We want to look at how many times maybe you contact the ground with your right foot in 30 seconds, and so you can count those up and then multiply by 2 to get up to 60 seconds, and multiply by 2 to get up to both feet. So you're going to have your number of steps per minute. Okay, so steps per minute target around 180 in 30 seconds could be like 45 steps per minute. So immediately you know, am I kind of on target for that, or am I above or below, right? So once you have that number, now you can decide, do I want to make a change to it? And do you want to kind of play with that a little bit, okay? So if you, for example, are running at around 150, one thing you might do would be to increase your step rate by 10 steps per minute. So that would be a more conservative approach to making a change. Another approach to make a change would be say, well, I want to try this 180 number out and just kind of go for it, right? And another change still is to say, well, let's try to have a little bit of a cluster of cadences that I could try out. And you want to try something at 170, 180, 190, 200. Okay, so as you do that, what you'll find is you get into those faster cadences, you're going to have a flatter foot strike and your shin will be more vertical as you're contacting the ground. So immediately that could be a little bit less impact, but it does change the muscles that you're used to running with, and so it could be a little bit more strenuous, and there's a period of adjustment for your body. So you might want to try introducing that over a period of 3 or 4 weeks, doing it 1 to 2 times a week before you kind of make up your mind, and make sure you give yourself some opportunity to rest. So you may want to try using some run-walk intervals when you're first introducing these different cadences, so that you can kind of try them out, see how it feels, and then give your body a little bit of time to adapt and recover, and then try it out again, okay? Oftentimes I would suggest something like 170 for a couple minutes, and then walk for a minute, and then 180 for a couple minutes, walk for a minute, 190 for a couple minutes, walk for a minute, and 200. Okay, so now if you kind of cycle through that 2 or 3 times, you're going to start to feel which one of these maybe feel more natural to you. But keep in mind, you need to train like that for a period of time in order to start noticing like a little bit of change and adaptation to running at those different cadences. I also do feel that it can be helpful or beneficial to people to maintain versatility. And so actually using different cadences in your training regularly from that 150 even up to 220 kind of spectrum may be helpful to you as a human to just be able to have versatility in your repertoire of movement. Okay, and like we say, that's going to slightly tax different muscles in different ways. So in a way, it's beneficial to to strength training for your system to be able to help try to have like different ways of doing things there. Okay, so those are some of our tips around cadence. Now, if you want to go and implement some of these changes, in addition to measuring at first, which you can just use a stopwatch, a couple of other tips for implementation is, one, you can use a metronome app. So if you get an app on your smartphone, you download a metronome app, and you can just set that then to your whatever cadence that you want to train, and then you try to match up your footsteps to that cadence. All right, and then another thing is that there are a lot of music lists out there that are emerging, or you can create your own, and there are apps as well that will analyze your music. And so if you have a bunch of music that you like to use, you can actually take that and start kind of throwing it into different piles and different playlists in order that you understand like what your cadence is as you run, okay? But yeah, definitely like some of the running apps, Nike app and things like Spotify will already have some of these like beats per minute or steps per minute lists, and that's really convenient. So you can just kind of pick one and then start using that to train a little bit. Now, they might not be completely precise, like there might be a 5 beats up or down kind of thing going on there, but it definitely at least gives you some insight and something that's kind of fun to work with. All right, so those are some of our tips for just beginning to understand cadence. Feel free to go and do a little bit of your own research. Understand that a lot of it is a little bit subjective out there at the moment, and there haven't necessarily been a ton of like research studies published in this area, but it's just one more variable that you can use in your training. And so we want to kind of learn and understand and then use that knowledge to benefit our training and our recovery and resilience. All right, hope that helps.